Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and my fellow young adults. Welcome yet to another exciting episode of Slice of Christ. Ecoute Moi? Yes, Ecoute Moi. This is the topic of our episode today. In our episode today, we will be highlighting or should I say diving deep in one of the hot topics which is going to happen in our time right now. Yes, you've guessed it right, Synod 2021 to 2023. But before we head into that, did you know Catholicism has been a moving force in the development of Western culture? It continues to be influential in religious issues, politics, social institutions, art, education, medicine, science, music, philosophy, and literature. Well, obviously, it's the oldest institution in Western world and traces its history to almost 2,000 years. Sounds interesting, does it? Never knew about that, but well, I don't want to be a pastor right now, but if you go to the Bible, the book of the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 15, there's something about the Council of Jerusalem. Could that be the first synod? I don't know. But if you look at it, it has all the elders of the church, the bishops, who were the first apostles, all gathered together and taking important decisions regarding the church and the future of the church. Well, I don't know much about it, but I have someone with me who knows a lot and can answer all our questions. Well, without further ado, I would like to invite our guest for the evening, a man who needs no introduction in our parish. He walks the talk and is the strongest pillar of faith in our midst. Yes, His Excellency Bishop Paul Hinder. Welcome, Bishop. Welcome, Bishop, or when I say Guten Abend.
Guten Abend.
Yes. Well, Bishop, firstly, I would like to thank you for making time to be present with all of us. I know you have a busy schedule and you're traveling again tomorrow. First of all, thank you to be present here. Bishop, for those of our young adults and friends who have not got the opportunity to read your pastor letter, in brief, if you could just give us a few words about your pastor letter.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak about also this topic, because it will be on the agenda for the next few months and beyond that. Now, as you know, Pope Francis has spoken many times in the last, especially 5 years, about synodality in the Church. And what is happening now is that Pope Francis wants the next Bishops' Synod to be an event and a process more that involves everybody in the Church and not only the bishops. Of course, the bishops do not act simply out of themselves, but it's always in touch with all the faithful. But this time, Pope Francis wants to begin at the grassroots level. And that's why already now we are speaking here, also in our vicariates, about the synodal path, or synodal way, which we will go during the next few months. And we hope that it will lead us to more communion, to more participation, and to a revival of our mission as Catholic Christians.
Yes, so mission, participation, these are the key aspects of the Synod 2021-2023. Well, Bishop, this is something new for us, and since you spoke about the grassroots level, can you help us understand what actually is a Synod, and what is the hierarchy and the functioning of our Church?
Yeah, ordinarily, a synod on the level of the Catholic Church is a gathering mainly of bishops, or those who have a similar function as bishops. Of course, when you look into the history, there were different forms, different levels. There were also earlier already lay people involved, at least in the organization of the synods or councils, and there were monks, there were less women in the past, as was normally not the case, although it was not absolutely excluded. There were abbesses who had the possibility also to participate in synods. But to be clear, normally it's mainly a bishop's gathering of a local church, respectively of a metropolitan church or a national church. It's a little bit dangerous to use this term, but on the level of a country or even of a continent. We had that in the first millennium, we had it also later. It has become rather rare in many regions of the Church. Also, the canon law always foresaw the possibilities that we could have synods on the level of the dioceses and then also on the level of the regional churches.
Okay, that's something new and interesting. So Bishop, you mentioned previously that in the next few days we're going to start the synod. When officially is it going to be inaugurated?
It will be inaugurated first by the Holy Father in Rome on the 9th and 10th October. And then a week later, all the dioceses in the world and also the apostolic vicariates are invited or called to open it on the local level. And we will do that on the 15th of October for our part as a local church. We do it combined with the Northern Vicariate because at present time I'm in charge of both vicariates. There will be present the Apostolic Nuncio, the new in Kuwait, who is the Nuncio for the countries in the north, and there will be the Charge d'Affaires, the representative at the Nunciature, which is to be opened here in Abu Dhabi. He will also be there until then when we open this synod here on the diocesan or vicariates level in Abu Dhabi on Friday the 15th October. The details will be given later.
Looks like a lot of top delegates are going to be here on the 15th of October in Abu Dhabi. Anyways, moving on. Bishop, for those people who are listening to us out there, is there any particular question or topic which is going to be discussed during this synod?
Yeah, as I have mentioned before, the question will be, of course, the whole synodal process as such, and aimed to the three basic themes: communion, that means communion of the church, mission, and participation. Participation in a sense to involve as many people as possible in this, I would say, basic reflection, and it is not a thought only an intellectual affair, a spiritual revival and reflection of the whole church, starting, as I said before, at the grassroots level, together with the priests and bishop.
So, when you mention grassroots level, Bishop, does this also include the young adults out there, the faithful of the church, along with the bishops and the priests?
Yeah, of course, all the baptized,
Okay.
as far as they are, let's say, mobile and able to participate. Of course, the babies are not yet able to participate in an active sense. They are fully members of the church. That is true for the youth, it's true for the children, it's true for people who are living at the, let's say, borderline of the church in regarding the active participation. Because also here in our region we have many people who for different reasons cannot really visibly participate very often in the life of the church, but they want to be, let's say, Catholics or to remain. And even the others who don't want to remain Catholics are invited to express themselves, also maybe about their reasons why they are not actively involved anymore. So everybody, including prisoners, including let's say prostitutes or whoever is there, they are invited to express themselves during this process of the synodal way we are going. And it's not only the question to produce a paper, which of course we will give afterwards to the Bishops' Conference of the region, and then it goes up at the end to the Central Secretariat in Rome at the Vatican. The way as such, the process of exchange, of being in liaison, in touch with the others, to also give personal witness of the own faith, that is important. And I hope it will produce fruits. We cannot plan that because I deeply believe that the synodal process is first of all the work of the Holy Spirit, and when we are able to listen to Him, then it will bear fruit. And listen to Him means also listen to the others, not only our own ideas, but to listen. Now coming back to your first question of the youth, listen also to the youth, what is their concerns, especially also in our region here. I know that the youth here has maybe particular challenges compared to the youth in other parts of the world.
Well, for those of you listening out there, remember, questions are open for everyone. That means participation of each and every one of us is going to be important. So stay tuned, keep following the activities going on in church. You never know when they will open it up, and you might get a chance to present your question, just like how Bishop said. Bishop, in the beginning when I started the session, I mentioned the point about the Council of Jerusalem, which was in the Acts of the Apostles. Could we say a council and a synod is the same thing, or what is the difference between a council and a synod?
A difficult question, because actually there were certain synods called later councils, and there were certain councils which practically were synods. So it's not always clear to make a difference between the two. Now, looking back, of course, in the history, we speak about ecumenical councils, and that doesn't mean what we understand nowadays, inter-church exchange. It means the whole Catholic Church worldwide, with all the bishops, was gathering as far as it was possible. And we had 21, I think, ecumenical councils throughout the history, not all of the same importance, but especially the first ones were of basic importance for the development of the church. Not only, but also the so-called Council of the Apostles. But then think about our creed, which is the fruit of a long process and mainly worked out at the first ecumenical councils. Then the synod nowadays normally we understand it a little bit on a lower level, and which in the present situation as Bishop Synod has not even a binding authority to take decisions. Everything at the end depends on the final decision of the Pope. But that doesn't mean that it is meaningless, because we know how strong the influence can be of a qualified council, be it coming from lay people, be it coming from priests, be it among the bishops themselves. And I think we have already seen the fruit of the Bishop's Synod during the last 50 years, because it was constituted after the wish of the Council, Vatican Council II, by St. Paul VI, and it will surely further be developed. And I think what Pope Francis is doing now is a very important step forwards to a major involvement of all the faithful in the synodal process, which was not so explicit in earlier times.
Yes. Sure. When I was preparing for this session, I came across a certain Sister Natalie Beckart. Can you help our audience know who is Sister Natalie Beckart?
First of all, I don't know her personally. She is a member of a French congregation, relatively young one, and she has specialized also in the matter, has been very active in France in the field of the pastoral of youth, I would say, and how to organize the Catholic youth in France, and has now been called by Pope Francis as at this important position to be the vice secretary of the synod. And what is now unique compared to earlier synods, that she will be there with voting right and as an active participant in the synod. And I think Pope Francis is well aware that it is a step which may lead to further development and involvement not only of religious sisters, but of lay people in general, and especially the women. And insofar it's a clear signal of major importance also for the future of the, I would say, of the second half of humanity also in the church, which unfortunately very often in the past has been kept a little bit on the second or even third level. And we see how it will produce fruits. I am confident. It takes time, you know. The Catholic Church, like other big organisms, but especially the Catholic Church, is moving slowly, but at the very end, when we look back to the history, with energy and with sustainability.
Well, since you mentioned this about she being from a small congregation of nuns, what kind of signal does the nomination of Sister Beckard send to religious women all over the world?
Yeah, as I said, first of all, the recognition of their mission within the church. You know, maybe a little bit less than I know, that in practice, very often, especially in certain parts of the world, the religious congregation of the women have been taken at the service of the male-directed churches. You can look at that. To give an example, there were bishops, they needed someone for the household in the episcopal curia. They very often were looking after a sister congregation who could do that. Even in the Pope's household it was the same in the past. Now it's a little bit different because the Pope is now residing and eating in Santa Marta. And then in general way it was always at the service of those mainly who had the power of decision in the church. And then made submitted to the priests and to the bishops. Now that is not necessarily a bad thing, but it is surely something which has to be corrected, especially with the growing competence of the women also in the congregations. They are nowadays very often well educated, specialized, like this sister who has been now appointed to this position for the synod. And there's still a long way to be gone, that is clear. But insofar, I think it's a very, very encouraging signal also for many of the congregations. They will maybe create sometimes a little problem for us, the bishops or the priests who are not yet ready to accept this movement. I hope that my colleagues, I hope I'm not belonging to that category, but that we are able to go forward in this movement.
Well, Bishop, my next question, I think it's a difficult question. Maybe someone only with the intellectual and spiritual knowledge of our beloved Pope Francis would be able to answer. But I just want to highlight one thing. We've been living in a male-dominated society since a very long time. Vastly, everything is known as a male-dominated society. Having a woman who represents the church on three levels, that is as a nun, a lay person, and most of all a woman, was it important that such a powerful position with the role which she is being appointed should be assigned to her?
I think yes, of course. Otherwise he wouldn't have done it, by the way. It has also to do, Pope Francis has on several occasions clearly said the role of the women also in certain positions of responsibility has to be highlighted and promoted. And I think he has done it because, by the way, she is not the first to get to a higher position. Only among these given positions, it's not up to now the highest ever being given. But I think it will go forward. one day I'm deeply convinced, without now entering in the question of the ordination of women, I think that is another issue. But for example, women could well be cardinal. Because cardinal doesn't mean that someone has to be ordained priest. We had in the past even lay people who had the rank of a cardinal in the history. So we have to be open to development, and where the Holy Spirit, the Church will lead, that we will see. I will see them, I hope, from heaven. You may see further progress during your lifetime, because you have still a longer future here on earth than I have. But let's look forward. You cannot remember that. I lived as a young man the Vatican Council II, of course not as a participant, but we followed that with attention. And of course not every dream we had in the 60s has been fulfilled, but when I'm looking back, it's enormous the way we have gone through. Sometimes people seem to forget that, but you cannot imagine how life looked like 50, 60, 70 years ago. I remember these days when I was doing my first communion in the year 51. Imagine 51, then you were, all of you, I think, still in the dreams of our Lord. How we have progressed and go forward, I think on the whole, a good way. Then there are also questionable developments within the Church, without any doubt, and not necessarily, or surely not mainly because of the Council, but because of other elements in the Church.
Well, Bishop, you mentioned in the beginning that all baptized are welcome to be a part of this synod. Why does everyone have to be involved?
Yeah, have to be involved. I mean, it's the freedom of each member of the Church. But everybody is invited. And why? Because Church is not the Pope. Church are not the bishops. Church are not the priests, the religious. Church are the baptized, all in their own way. And insofar as we go forward to realize what Jesus wanted us to be in the mission of the Church, that is the task of everybody. Of course, not everybody is called to go, I don't know where in the world to preach. But everybody who is baptized is called to be a witness for Jesus Christ. In a simple way, back home, in the family, in the schools, where we are working, where we are passing our leisure time, wherever. Because we are Christians baptized 24 hours a day. And even when we sleep, the Holy Spirit is still able to work in ourselves and to pray, Abba, Father, when we are
speaking right now, and focusing more about young adults.
Yes.
We had a synod recently for the young adults. I know that they weren't involved in the decision-making process, but they were also involved. Am I right?
Yes, you are right. Yes.
Yes. So how is that different from this part?
Yeah, it's different that at that time, if I have good memory, it's no more always so good. But I would say there are mainly involved young people, probably mainly those who already are actively involved in the life of the Church, like you here present. And this time the Pope explicitly is inviting everybody, even those who are distant to the Church, who are no more practicing. I had already told you that. And I think that makes a difference. Of course, That doesn't mean that they are right, but it is important for the church to know why are they no more active. It is important for the church to know what they have to say, what's their concern, their suffering sometimes. Because sometimes we are at risk, we as active Christians, you, me as a bishop, that we see only those who are so-called doing well. But when you listen carefully to Pope Francis, then you see his concern is to be a pastor for everyone, to reach out to what the Bible probably would say, the lost sheep. But what does it mean? The lost sheep is one to be regained, to be brought back to the love of God, not to make the statistics of the church better, but to let them share again the beauty of the love of God which He has given us in Jesus Christ. And that's the purpose. Because it's not a question of organization, of institution, that there are instruments to give, I would say, the skeleton which is necessary to carry on the body. But what is important, what we have to do is the heart of the church, the sensitivity which is given us in our human nature, but now transposed to the spiritual level also. That we approach the so-called sinner, or the real sinner, not only with the eyes of superiority, I am the good, he is the bad. No, first of all, I am also a sinner, but to listen to the one who has gone to a crisis, who is still going through. But that's true also for the young people. You know that as well as me, that not everybody is easily going through the whole development from the childhood to the life of a real adult person. There are many stumbling blocks in between which can be a problem for the individual person, and we shouldn't simply close our eyes and say, no, it's the lost sheep. No, there's never anybody lost. You have to run after. And that is maybe one of the aspects of the synod, to look after those who are distant.
Yes, Bishop, on that point of running after the ones who so-called term as lost sheep, how can we help make this topic of the synod relevant to the youth and the young adults, so that they will be able to contribute to a betterment for the synod itself?
Of course, there is a multi-purpose task. I think you as young adults, you as actively involved people in the church, have your own mission in this regard. Each one of us, of course. But you are closer to this generation which we are speaking right now about. And personal relationship, the personal witness, to communicate the joy we have because of our faith. Because as Pope Francis more than one letter said, there are too many sad Christians who look with a face which is not at all inviting and welcoming. And I think it starts with this attitude, how I approach the young people, and without judging. Of course, I have my values, and I don't need to hide them, but I do not judge the other. he may have his reason, and then step by step in respecting him or her in the respective life will probably help to go a further step. But I think the most important is to transmit through our whole being and doing and speaking the joy of the gospel. Evangelii Gaudium is one of the encyclical letters of Pope Francis, and I think that's it. And when you do that, I would say the rest comes almost out of itself.
Well, Bishop, we have some few questions from the people who are watching. One of the questions is, what are the possible questions that could arise from this synod?
Yeah, now we have first to listen to the people here, than in other parts of the world. As you know, the Pope, this phase is listening. It's the first step. So I cannot tell you now what will come out. Otherwise, I would speak before we have listened. I want to know from you, to remain here in the vicariate, from our people, what is their concern regarding our life as church, as Christians, regarding the way the church should develop in this part of the world. What do we live? But of course, I know a little bit because I'm here now since almost 18 years, and I have every year, except now during the pandemic, visited all the parishes. I have a little bit an idea, but I do not live in the illusion that I know everything. And I would give you as answer, first of all, let us listen. Of course, afterwards, there come out different topics when we come to the 3 terms, communion, participation, mission. It will have, not everybody understands the same thing under these terms, but how we live, for example, communion in these mega parishes, where we do not know each other, because if you take Abu Dhabi, it's impossible to know our brothers and sisters, not only because of the different languages, because of the different nationalities, but also because we are simply too numerous. So one question will be, how can we improve this relatively anonymous entity of a mega parish in reorganized, for example, in smaller entities, but still belonging and integrated in the big parish. That's a big issue, especially here in the Gulf, in the bigger cities, here in Abu Dhabi, in Jebel Ali, in Dubai, in Sharjah, in Muscat, in Doha. Imagine for whole Qatar, where I'm going tomorrow morning, the whole country is one parish. The same is true until now in Bahrain. In Kuwait, it was almost like that until a few years back. That is not the same as most of us may have lived in our home countries, where we had relatively small parishes, where we knew more or less who belonged to, where we could be in interaction. And there I think we have also in this part people who are suffering under it, because there are always portions of the people of God which are not on the radar, I would say, of our attention. And that I'm expecting that through the synodal process in our region there will be major sensitivity regarding this. I mentioned it earlier. Who is interested on the people who are in prison? There are also our brothers and sisters there, and in many other fields which are far away. Of course, there are fortunately prayer groups or other groups who are reaching out to the labor camps and so on where it is possible. But there, I think there's still more to be done.
Well, friends, like how I mentioned at the beginning of the show, Ecoute Moi, that's the topic, and that's what Bishop is here for. He's here to listen to each and every one of you. Bishop, the next question which we have is, will it be possible to provide any shield of anonymity to the parishioner if they would like to raise a sensitive issue?
Now we are working on that to look that it is possible, because I'm well aware there are people who have to say something and they don't want to be exposed with their identity to the public. We have to find, of course, a way. I don't think that we can work with a complete anonymity for everything, because that can also be critical, because it opens the door for slandering and all the kind of stuff. But there will be, we are working on that, a level where people can bring the, I would say, the message, at least to the bishop or to the core group who will be in charge to coordinate, where confidentiality is guaranteed, that to bring it to the attention. Then there will surely be also a platform where people can, I would say, more or less anonymously bring up. But it may be that at the very end it has also to be a little to sort it out, because you know from your own experience nowadays on the social platforms, there are things sometimes expressed where, at least on the church level, we have to be careful that we do not create problems where we should resolve them through wrong, sometimes also information. But coming back to the main question, we are working on that to get the possibility that people can freely speak without being at risk to suffer under retortions afterwards from certain circles in the church.
Well, Bishop, our next question is somewhat based on what you spoke about people who are in labor camps or in prisons. What will be a systematic procedure that will give equal influence and accessibility to all parishioners?
Yeah, equal may be not possible because of the reality when we look into our society. We can only promote major equality in this regard, because it depends already who has access, for example, to internet. Not everybody has that. Who knows how to handle it? Of course, we can help the people, but there are, I would say, somehow natural limits where some have more advantages than others. And it might be difficult to cover, to make the bridge between these differences. What we can do to minimize these differences. And that starts again with people who have the gift and the time and the ability to reach out and to help those who are at the periphery, to integrate them in the whole process. Of course, the bishop alone cannot do that. He cannot go to all the labor camps and to speak individually to the persons. But we have groups in all our parishes who at least have contacts, who can have contacts and help to help them also, to invite them to express their not only feelings but concerns regarding how to live as a Christian, as a Catholic in this particular situation. And then we may come to a relative equality that everybody can speak. What I mean, or what also the Pope means, is to avoid that only, I would say, the professional Christians have their word. It's important that the so-called normal, but also the silent Catholic can express him or herself. Then we see what happens. I'm not a prophet.
One more question again from the youth. How do the youth actively engage as the church opens up the door?
Yeah, when it opens up the door to me, we shall see that. I can't tell you today, but I can only say everybody is invited, not only to look at the church, to look at those who are actively involved and to do the business, but to ask ourselves, each one, what is my possibility to participate more actively again when it's opening. And then we have to look at the situation also of the ability and gift of each person, what is possible in the different ministries of the parish life, for example. And it's not only regarding the liturgy and the prayer we are doing, it's also a question what we do, I would say, in the profane world, how we live there, because sometimes we have a little bit the tendency to limit the Christian life, the Catholic life, to the number of prayers and masses we are celebrating and to the participation in the exquisite religious group. But equally important is the witness of each person, where they work, where they live. We can see this very often with the nurses in hospitals, for example. They have an enormous influence in this regard. Or how people are, I would say, engaging when they are working in a hotel or in the shops, in the malls. They don't need to be explicit in the announcement of the gospel, but they have to radiate the gospel through their being. That you can very often feel. Up to the flight attendants sometimes on the plane.
Bishop, there's a question for you. Were you lucky to be a part of a synod? If so, which year and what was the topic about?
I have participated only once in a Bishop's Synod, and it was the one about the church in the Middle East in 2010. And of course there was a particular experience together, because there all the bishops of the Middle East were invited. So normally there are only, for example, of our Bishops' Conference, only one is in the normal Bishop's Synod present. And usually it was the president or the vice president of our Bishops' Conference. So there was also little chance because of that. But for the Middle East Synod, I was actively involved. I have spoken also there in the presence of the Pope, by the way. It was Pope Benedict still. And it was a good experience because we have seen also the variety of the Catholic traditions in the Middle East. And of course also the suffering, especially it was before the war in Syria, but there were already many tensions in many regions at that time. So it was a unique experience which I have in a good memory. Although of course we could not resolve all the problems of the Catholic Church in its variety in the Middle East.
Bishop, one of the key fundamentals of the Synod is journeying together. What does this journeying together mean, And how is this journey together happening in our vicariate here?
Yeah, I can't give you a full answer to this question. I would say, first of all, we have to come together, and then we can also go together. Both are necessary. And the synod implies both aspects, coming together and then the journey together. And for that, I would probably take refuge to comparison of a pilgrimage. When we are in common on the way, first of all, we come together, we want to go forward, we have a purpose, a goal, we want to make a pilgrimage to a shrine, for example. We know there's a long way. We do not know what is happening on the way, but we have a clear purpose. And I see the similar way also that what we want to reach is, I repeat, major communion, major participation, and a deeper mission. Let us go forward for that, and together asking ourselves, how can we realize that being on the way and going forward?
One question here is, you mentioned in the beginning that, I mentioned in the beginning, that the synod is from 2021 to 2023. Why is it so long?
Yeah, I think it's even too short. Because imagine, only for us now on the local level, within these few months to go through the program we have spoken about, to listen to the people, to reach out to them. Within a few months, that's enormous. Because someone has to do that. Not only a few specialists. So to bring it to the conscience, to the people, takes time. Needs weeks, not only days, or maybe months. So we are working hard on that, and then you have to see that those people have to do the work, they have other works to do at the same time. So I am rather telling you the time is too short, but we will try to do our best in this first local level for the next, let's roughly 4 months or 5 maximum. Then the regional level within the Bishops' Conference, and then it goes to the main event at the end as the real Bishops' Synod in 2023. But you will see when you are putting yourselves on the work, it's not long, it will be very short, I tell you. But it's for those who have to do the work.
Well, 2023 has 2 major events happening. One is the synod the final discussion of the synod is going to take place, and we have a World Youth Day in Portugal also going to take place in 2023. Bishop, one more question is there. Will we be able to attend the synod inaugural mass?
You think about the inaugural mass here in Abu Dhabi on the 15th of October.
Yes.
Yeah, that depends also on the regulations of the government regarding the number of people who can come to the church at the same time. I wish that the maximum of people can participate, but probably we'll have to select to make it possible that at least representatives from the whole area of the 2 vicariates can be present. It may not be possible, but we will try to that. Then, how many beyond those I would say we select, or I have to select. I can't tell you now. I wish that it would be the maximum. We may have to ask also the ministry for maybe special conditions for such an event, but there is no guarantee that it will be granted. We'll try our best. Then it's not only the inaugural Mass, it is planned that at the end of the synodal process of the regional, of the diocesan level, there will be a conclusion. That doesn't mean that the process shouldn't continue, but there will be a formal conclusion of that, let's say, period, or first period of the synod. I can't tell you now when that will be, but I suppose it will some maybe end of January or February. We have to see that. Until then, hopefully, more people can come and also participate in such an event. If we can do, for example, again, celebrations outdoor with the full potential we had in the past, it would be marvelous. Then thousands can participate. But how things look now on the pandemic level, I'm not sure that it will be possible. I can still hope.
Well, will there be more lay people or young people invited to the next synod?
You mean to the phase in Rome?
Yes.
That I can't tell you because I simply do not know it. But I'm sure that it is the intention of the Holy Father that there be major involvement also regarding the number of lay people who will be there. Of course, strictly speaking, at the very end, it's mainly the synod of the bishops. It's also the name, like I said, Bishop Synod. But they are, I would say, surrounded by other people. They are lay people, they are religious, which are not ordained, and so on. There may or surely will be also representatives of non-Catholic churches, just as witnesses and as people who can, in their own way, also make their input. By the way, we will have to look even on the local level at this point, how we can improve also a little bit the relationship with other Christian denominations and to involve them in their own way. It's already complicated for us as Catholics, but it's not impossible also to involve more the others.
What about the fact of after this synod finishes in 2023, the remaining synods after that, or the synods to come in future, will lay people also be involved in the decision making during that time, based on the topics?
Yeah, you know, as the Bishop's Synod is set now, even the bishops don't take decisions up to now, unless the statute of the Bishop's Synod is changed. At the very end, it's the Pope who takes the decision. But as we have seen, the Pope is also a listener, and whenever something is brought up which is in, I would say, in concordance with the Church, with the Gospel and with the tradition of the Church, then it will be integrated, never mind from which source it is coming. And insofar, I'm sure that the involvement of the lay people in this decision making will continue, will probably also institutionally be strengthened, but that is now something that doesn't depend on me and my opinion. We'll have to see how it develops. But I'm sure we are at the beginning of a process which will lead beyond that, what we had in the past, and where lay people will have a stronger voice than it was the case in the past.
Okay. Well, this is our last question from our public. Is this one of the greatest projects of Pope Francis' pontificate?
That's difficult to say. What's the greatest is that we see most of the time afterwards in the history. But I think this pushing the synodality and to send the whole church on the synodal way, I think it will be a landmark also in the history of the church. I think so. But I will tell you that one day from heaven, when I look back, what will be the most important, maybe at the very end, could also be the signature he has given here in Abu Dhabi. Who knows about the human fraternity? We never know in the long term what has then long life. We'll see that. But definitely these are historical steps which we, and I appreciate that they are done. Will they be sustainable and in which way? We'll see that, because that depends not only on our intelligence, it depends mainly in the receptivity among the people, and then of course it's the work of the Holy Spirit. Don't forget him. He is powerful.
Well, that's all from our audience, Bishop. We go to our next segment, which is Candid with Bishop.
So you are candid, or who is?
Bishop, in this bowl in front of you with a beautiful smile on it, there are some questions which have been sent from our young adults who would like to know some personal things about him. So you can go ahead and you can
Blindly.
You can read the question.
Bishop, which is your favorite prayer, song, movie, sport, and quote? And that is a whole collection. My favorite prayer is the Pentecost sequence, Veni Sancte Spiritus, come, Holy Spirit, come, which I pray every day in the morning, soon after getting up from bed. Song, it's music in general. I have just, in our discussion, mentioned it again. Once I said to my confreres already when I was still in Switzerland, when I'm one day laying on the deathbed but still capable to listen to music, you have to play for me the creed of John Sebastian Bach's Great Mass, which for me is simply a revelation of the Christian mysteries, and I can listen to it again and again and again. Now, sport at the moment will be more difficult because I'm a professional non-sportive man. If there is a sport I like, I liked, because now they touched the physical limits, but mountain walking, that was one of the things I really liked. I didn't like ball games at all, except I would say volleyball when I was young. Football was a horror for me. I can tell you why. Because I was not very gifted in this regard, and then I was always put in the defense, and we are always the culprits when there is a goal. So we are always the blamed, and so I didn't like it at all. Then, of course, as a Swiss, when I was young, I liked skiing in the mountains. Quote. There are many quotes. I will go back to the Bible now. One of the most beautiful verses we have, by the way, a few days back, when it is said, God so much loved the world that he sent his only Son, not to condemn the world, but to redeem the world. And that is what is important also for us.
There's one more part which should be missed, your favorite movie.
Oh, that's more difficult. When can I look movies now? I look sometimes on YouTube, so I haven't been in the cinema since many years. I think since I left Rome 18 years ago, I haven't been in the cinema anymore. Only on the television or like that. So it's difficult to tell you preferred movie. If I look a little bit back, then there are several. One of them, of course, was Pasolini's Gospel of Matthew. When I was young, it was. I relooked it now as an archive film, also during the pandemic, which gave me a little bit more space to look at these things. But I'm really not very gifted in telling you who's played what. So I have to pass this.
Okay, no problem.
Maybe also to disappoint when you are looking now that this poor bishop, he doesn't even know the figures.
Bishop, why would you like to pick up another? Oh, yeah, it's okay.
I can take it afterwards. If you could time travel to your past, which moment in your life will you choose to relive? How many moments? It's a, I should know, is it a moment or a time in my life? I would say, for me, surely important were the years in roughly between 65 and 75, these 10 years, which were marked by an incredible change in the church and so on, and also in the order where I was actively involved. There were the times of the finish of the study in theology and then continuation at the university. There we were, was full of power and energy, much more than now. That was an exciting time. Of course, then there are particular moments of traveling later. Because of my responsibilities, I have a chance to travel to many parts in the world, which has marked me also in my broadening the horizon from Africa, through Indonesia, or through Latin America and so on, which has helped me to look with different eyes. You have to imagine, just as my background, I was born really in countryside, far away from the city. My father surely has never left Switzerland except for a pilgrimage in Rome before he was married. He spoke about that later. Also, we were only 15 or 20 kilometers from the German border. He surely was never in Germany. So you can see the small horizon we had right from our life situation. And then for me, later when I became Capuchin with all this possibility, was an eye-opener to discover the world in another way as other people may do. So coming back, a very important time was surely Vatican Council II with its consequences, the beautiful ones, then also the times of crisis afterwards, which I have lived with intensity because many of my friends, they corrected their life decision later. Unfortunately, when I look, those who were ordained with me, many of them left. This was a very, very hard time, especially because some of them were among my best friends. Shall I go to
Yes, sure.
We have seen you for so many years and you haven't aged. You still look the same. What is your secret? No, I know that I still look the same. I think I put a little bit weight in these 18 years. The secret, well, first of all, you have to judge if it is true. Generally, I feel in the reaction of the people that they estimate that I'm younger than I am in reality. Healthy life and to have, I would say, on the whole, a positive approach to the world, to the people, not to let the problems overcome ourselves. Normally I say it in these words. Of course, I have problems, sometimes heavy ones, that cannot resolve them in a short time. And some may never be resolved as long as I live. But I have really this attitude in the evening when I go to bed, mentally, I put the problems on the night table mentally and tell the Lord, look, if you want me to resume the work tomorrow morning, let me now sleep in peace. In the meantime, you take care of what is there, and then you give me back tomorrow morning. That's a little bit, I do not forgive every day explicitly, but that's a little bit the way I am looking at what I have to do. The second thing is, not to take fast decisions, to take time. Maybe that sometimes people think the bishop is slow in decision taking, or he should be more energetic. But I think it's important to. I'm the son of a farmer where we live with the nature, and I knew and I know that things take time. And you cannot, when you put the seed, artificially accelerate the growth of the plant. You have to let it. And you have to look what is coming out. And that helps me probably also to be less concerned and not always living in a kind of depression or half depression. And maybe that is transposed upon also to the physical appearance that I am until now less aging in a certain sense because of that.
One more question.
Can you tell us any influences in your early days that helped you to cope up with life? What I just said before, of course it's connected also a little bit to that. It's not exactly that, but I would like to tell you a story which has marked me strongly. I think I have already told this story in other occasions. When I was at the boarding school, about at the age maybe of 17, 16, 17, I had big problems with one of the teachers, who was a Capuchin, by the way. And we didn't understand each other. And I got bad marks again and again, especially regarding behavior. So you see, I was not only an angel. And it happened once, just before the leave, Easter leave. There were always about 2 weeks holidays over Holy Week and Easter. Before we went to the last day, out of this, when I came out from the study room, the common study room, there was this father walking up and down, and I think, what is now again the problem? I knew that it was coming because of me. And straight he came, and then he said, Paul, I want to apologize. I didn't understand you. I think we can do it differently. After Easter, we will have another behavior. I was simply struck by the reality that for me he was an authority, he was a teacher, and one I didn't love at all, had the humility to say, I apologize. And that has made grow his authority in my eyes. By the way, afterwards he became my confessor for a while, and he was moved to another place, something I couldn't have imagined before. So I said, and that's why I'm telling you that, for myself, it's never a shame to admit our weakness, our mistakes. And I think also an authority, including a bishop, and I can see it even with Pope Francis, we have to have sometimes the courage to say, I was wrong. I made a mistake where it was wrong. And to have the courage not to say, no, I'm superior to all that. And this example of this man that goes back to the late 50s or late 50s has marked me for, I would say, for the rest of my life.
Maybe we can take 2 more questions, Bishop. You can pick up 2 chits.
And then take 2 at the
Yes.
How is it possible for you to remain so patient or at peace and calm regardless of the most worrying situation hovering around you? First of all, are you sure that I'm always patient? Generally, I think I try to be that. And yeah, I learned that maybe not the last with my mother, who had an incredible confidence in God. Also in very difficult situations, she was always said, there will be a way. Don't lose patience. And she had also to be patient with me, by the way. That helps to remain in peace. And to be aware, even now as a bishop, it is not my church. It is the church of the Lord. And I am an agent, a minister, a servant, a worker in his vineyard, as Pope Benedict said after his election as Pope. And if you look at that I am not responsible for everything that is happening, even the bad thing in the church. Of course, as a leader, you have to stand for the people. But I say at the very end, it's given. In bad times and in good times, don't lose courage. Lord, you have put me here. I didn't want to come, once I came, I said, now I'm here, that's now your my ministry, and it made me happy right away. And that gives, I think, the peace to my soul. I remember, because of the way how it worked at that time, I got, let's say, the wind that I could become bishop in the Gulf many months before it happened. And that was for me a difficult time. What do you say when they ask you to become bishop? Yes or no? And then I went through the process, by the way, it was during the Holy Week 2003 in Jerusalem, where I had to work it out. And I can tell you, for me, that was probably the most important retreat I did in my life, where I came to this, I would say, balance in my heart. Please, Lord, let this chalice pass, but not my, your will be done. And once I had gone through that, I was in peace. I didn't know what would happen. I had still to wait about 8 months until the decision was taken in Rome. But I said, okay, now it's God's will, we do it. And if you surrender to that, it helps to get the peace and the patience.
Okay, a final question, Bishop.
I'm wondering what that will be. How did it feel coming from the snow-clad Switzerland to the Arabian desert? Has the first impression of Arabia changed? Yeah. First of all, it was not only snow in Switzerland, especially not in the region where I was born, because I'm from the plain, not from the Alps. It took me years until I saw the first mountains, because I was born in one of the few regions in Switzerland where there are no mountains, real mountains. But to come to answer you, when I came as a visitor the first time to Abu Dhabi, to Dubai, if I'm right, it was in '96, when I took over the responsibility as Capuchin, Great General Council also for this region. Then I said in my heart, never in my life I could live here, in this dust, in this no nature, no colors. Terrible, how can you live here? Then it turned out differently. And of course I can still feel, I miss the seasons of Switzerland. It's difficult to explain about the changes of seasons when you have the wonderful spring in flowers and the summertime. Then now it starts again, the colors in fall, when all the trees are getting colorful. And then also the winter, especially when I was young, we had surely more snow than it is the case nowadays. That, of course, we do not have. But once I was here, I said, no, it makes no sense to be less nostalgic. I'm now here. And I discovered, within limits, of course, because I'm not someone who goes every day to the desert, but the beauty of the desert and the beauty of certain regions also beyond the UAE, in Oman, in Yemen. Unfortunately, we know what's going on there, but in Yemen is a very, very enriching and interesting place. Then it's not the landscape, the people, the faithful I have to serve. They are, I would say, my beautiful landscape. To live this reality with my brothers and sisters and for my brothers and sisters. And I can tell you, it will not be easy to go back to Switzerland, despite of the beautiful landscape and the wonderful things I have lived in my youth. I will surely live part of my heart here in the Arabian desert, not because of the sand, but because of the people I had the grace and I have still the grace to serve.
That's amazing. Thank you, Bishop, for being a real good sport. We all know Bishop is traveling, as he mentioned, he's traveling to Qatar tomorrow. And Bishop, we have something special for you since you're going to be traveling a long journey. This is a small hamper to keep you busy on your travel.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Very kind of you. Wonderful. Okay.
Thank you. So for all of you out there, thank you very much for attending this episode. Before we wind up, this is the last episode of this season until we see you next season soon. But for those of you who are watching, we have a special gift hamper. The first person to type the answer in the comment section, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. In one of our previous episodes, our guest spoke about Pantone, color of the year. This year is yellow and grey. The question for you all to answer is, what was the color of the year 2020? What was the color of the year 2020? The first person to put the answer in the comment section will win a lovely gift hamper from all of us. On behalf of the team of Slice of Christ, on behalf of Bishop Paul Hinder and everyone who was present for all these episodes, thank you and see you for the next season. Good evening.
Fine, you can stay up.